Hey there, YouTube. How's it going? I'm back, and today I'm taking a look at another 6 scale action figure. This time, it's a figure that a lot of people consider to be an air quotes grail figure. This is the Hot Toys 300 King Leonidas action figure. So now I'm going to go ahead and get that box out of the way, and we'll take a look at the actual figure itself. Now, heads up, I have had the Star Ace King Leonidas figure in my collection before, and I really liked that figure for all of its faults. And so I will probably be drawing a lot of comparisons between these two figures throughout the review. Sadly, I do not have the Star Ace Leonidas in my collection anymore, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. But anyways, this review is about this figure right here, the Hot Toys King Leonidas. First off, I just want to say this came out in 2010 or 2011. This is a 10-year-old figure almost. And my gosh, to have something that holds up from that long ago with how rapidly the industry has grown in terms of the technology and quality of figures that they can produce is marvelous. It is a marvelous piece, and it's really a testament to how far ahead of the times Hot Toys really were back when they were making these figures. And I mean, compare this. I'm going to take the helmet off real quick. And, this head sculpt is a love it or hate it sort of a deal. But compare the quality of what we got right here with what Sideshow was doing back in 2010 or any other company, and there's really no contest there. Now, when you're looking at the whole figure like this, one thing that I will say, which is kind of a bummer, is recently the industry has started upscaling their 6 scale figures. So, all you need to do to see what I'm talking about is take your Captain America First Avenger action figure and put it up next to your Endgame Captain America figure, if you have those from Hot Toys, and you will see a drastic size difference. Figures are just bigger now in 6 scale, which may actually be closer to true 6 scale than they used to be. So King Leonidas up next to, newer Coup model knights, or even, the Star Ace, Leonidas or Themistocles, he is a tad bit smaller of a figure. Not enough to really harm a display, I think, but enough to notice. And that's just to do with how the industry has changed. Now, prior to going on with the review, because I know there's probably a lot of questions concerning this rubber body, one of the earlier seamless jointed bodies that we would have gotten, I'm going to take a look at all the accessories that Leonidas comes with. So first of all, you can see the hands and weapons and cape and necklace. That's all on him right now. He also comes with a second head sculpt, this one right here, which is just a stern, relaxed sort of looking head sculpt. Pretty good from the profile, actually. Good head on. Hot Toys, man, the fact that they were just doing sculpts with paint apps this good 10 years ago, my gosh. I mean, there's companies that frequently produce figures that don't look this good today. I'm talking about licensed companies. Anyways, so that's the relaxed head sculpt. I really do prefer this. It's an intense sculpt. It's an angry sort of sculpt, but it's not full on screaming or yelling like the one Star Ace gave us. It's kind of like a mid-talk, like he's giving one of his epic monologues or one-liners. Take from them everything. That's the line that I think is coming out of his mouth with this sculpt. Anyways, moving on. He also comes with an alternate right gripping hand, which is enclosed entirely, and that's meant for hanging on to his sword here. Now, I think that the spear is just a bit more iconic for this character and for Spartan warriors and BC warfare in general. So I have him. Gosh, that is in there. Good. Whew. Okay. So I have him holding his spear. However, I'll do this on camera. The bottom just pops off there. That is a tight fit, and the bottom pops back on. So I have him displayed using a spear, but that sword still, I mean, it looks great and it's awesome. And that design of sword is pretty unique to Frank Miller's 300, adopted well for the movie. So slice, it's cool. Not how I'm rolling though, not currently at least. He also comes with a right wide open hand. This would have been like a force using hand. This is just reuse, I think, from other figures. So maybe he just threw his spear and it's reaching forward like that. Get the end when he threw it at Xerxes. He has several arrows that you can put into his shield. This one still has the arrowhead, and I do like that they gave us that because, again, it is another unique callback directly to Frank Miller's graphic novel. All the Persians use these crazy-looking arrowheads, so it's cool that we got that. They used them in the movie also, but again, that was Zack Snyder borrowing directly from Frank Miller. He has these longer arrows with no arrowheads that you can just fit into the shield. And in this little plastic baggie here, we have a couple of extra pegs and more broken arrow shafts. Phew! That's gonna do it. Boy, we sure used to get a lot more stuff with our 6-scale figures than we do now. So now let's get into the figure proper. I'm going to go ahead and start off with articulation. Now, I'm going to pop that helmet off again, give you one quick up at it. It's a good looking helmet. It is plastic. It's really not that flexible though. It almost feels brittle. It's hard. I'm not really worried about it breaking. But cool helmet. Now the reason I took that helmet off is because the neck joint, even though this figure is meant to have removable heads, swappable, that neck joint is so tight. It took so much force to get this second head on, and there it just rotates really hard. Nothing loose about that joint right there, probably because of the rubber on the neck. And so when you have the helmet on and you're doing it, you're holding them both down and twisting it, and I really don't want to harm the paint on Leonidas's head. So anyways, there's that joint right there. The neck, there's not a lot going on in there. Now, the shoulders operate much like any typical shoulder joint would, except that it is covered entirely in rubber. Now, I've already taken this figure to the extremes, so I'm going to actually pop that spear out to give us a little more room. Here's a quick look at the spear. It's long, it's awesome, and it's pretty accurate. So this shoulder will go out pretty harmlessly to... Oh, see, it pops back. There's a lot of resistance. It's an old joint also, so I can't... There we go. 90 or so degrees there, and it's already moving down. So, it's not going to hold a really straight out pose for too much longer. This is about the maximum that this joint will hold, at least on my figure. The elbow can bend to about 90, and here's the deal with that elbow. That's actually not a joint in there. That is a bendy wire, a strong, sturdy bendy wire, but it is a bendy wire. Now, when I first had this figure on its way, I was worried that this body was going to be a lot like the Hot Toys Rocky body. I don't know if any of you have the MMS 30 some odd Rockies, but they use the bendy wire joints also. For whatever reason, I just did not like those bodies at all. But it is worth mentioning that by the time Hot Toys got around to Leonidas, they had improved this body a bit. So there we get a little, it's your standard wrist peg, standard wrist joint for all 6-scale figures. I also love the thumbs up hand, by the way, because it's great for holding and posing spears. Whoa! Sorry about that. There we go, back to it. Okay. So, bring it back. It'll go back about as far as it'll go forward, which is great. It'll go out to about there, flush with the body, but you'll see once you get it to that extreme pose, you do get some of the awkward folding starting to happen in that shoulder. So I would say it's probably safer just to keep it at about right there. Now, again, when this first came out, there were a lot of people who were really worried about how this body was going to hold up. And I'm glad to say, now that it's been 10 years since whoever originally had this figure had it, this body's doing just fine. So there's really no issues there. And worst case scenario, we have a lot of options now for high-end seamless bodies. If something did happen, I just swap it onto a Fison. There's a joint right here for the bicep cut to go out and in. There we go. And it's the same on this side, except he's holding his shield right now up at the ready, so I'm not going to muss with that too much. Let's get Leonidas looking forward real quick and go into the legs. So, if you can see this, the legs are just connected at a ball joint up there. So, unlike the Rocky figures, which were wearing a weird, almost seamless, like, pants, I guess, at least on the Drago, I'm pretty sure it was. But there's not going to be much restriction at the hips, which is great, because I can get Leonidas kicking the Persian emissary, or messenger, down the well. So those go up even further than how I have it. That's a solid 90 right there, I'd say. Then there's a joint, not a bendy wire, double jointed ball in the knee, which will allow you to get an excellent range of motion in the legs. Happy to say that. Now, the feet are not on your standard ball joint. They are on basically an upscaled version of the joint that we use in the wrists, which is fine. Articulation's not going to be as fluid or as easy with that type of joint, but I'm not going to complain too much because it is still tight. And had they used ball joints, this Leonidas figure may have gotten loose ankles by now because it's had a very long shelf life. The final joint of articulation, or piece of articulation that I haven't gone into yet because it's pretty much useless, is in the waist here underneath this suit. Now, it is surrounded by a ton of rubber, but it is actually another wire, which will give you about this much of a crunch on Leonidas, but it doesn't really look good. It looks like he just got maybe punched in the stomach or something, I don't know. And then it'll bend back about that far, which is pretty much just him standing normally. So that joint is more or less useless, but whatever. So now I want to get into the functionality of this figure a little bit. Like I said, I've had the Star Ace version, and honestly, while that is a newer figure, the Hot Toys figure is more functional. The Star Ace had a more, not a seamless body, but a newer type of body. It was sculpted very nicely. I actually think that in some places, the musculature on the Star Ace version was more accurate to what we saw in the movie, such as the massive bulging abs that stuck out as far as his pecs did. However, it did not really work all that well. There was no possible way, for instance, to get the figure to do that because there was no swivel side to side. So while this is an older body and definitely a more archaic body with the use of the wire joints, it is still a more functional body than what Star Ace gave us. And that is awesome for posing because I will be completely honest. I know most people stick to a museum pose. I'm probably going to pose Leonidas up in my collection as dynamically as I possibly can. And maybe I'll try that on camera actually, get a cool pose with him. One thing that we haven't really spoken about yet is the cape. You know, cape is awesome. It drapes well. They used a felty type of fabric. And there is a goodly amount of wear down there at the bottom. You know, Leonidas marched all the way to the hot gates, dragging that on the ground, fighting in battles. the cape would have certainly gotten a bit of wear and tear. And it did. So now let's go into aesthetics. I'm going to take the camera off of its mount real quick so we can get in there a little bit closely. And you'll see there's some scarring on the body. There's some stuff like that on the shoulder, which is from where they actually injected the rubber into the figure. There we go. The nipples are actually painted brown, which is my only thing really against Feisum bodies is, there's no nipples. Here we go. Great. So if I did end up ever having to swap out this body, the only thing I'd really be missing out on is that scar on Leonidas' chest, and the fact that Feisum bodies just have a weird doll-like quality to them, and this body actually manages to look pretty realistic, all things considered. I'm really glad that Hot Toys limited the use of faux leather. They could have done a lot more, but had they done, his panties in faux leather, they probably would have started wearing by now. Instead, the use of faux leather is restricted to the belt and his back harness, which is fine by me because those pieces don't get a lot of rubbing action, and as you can see, they've held up just fine after so many years. There is some separation right here on the belt, but that's going to be an easy dab of glue to fix. So, and I haven't done this actually yet, so I'm going to do it with you on camera for the first time. But I'm going to take out some of these broken arrow shafts here and actually pop them into the shield just to see how easy, that one fell out, so maybe easy wasn't the right word, but just to see how that works, how that looks. There we go. Some of them slide in easier than others. There we go. Sort of just need to find the angle of the hole. And I'm sure you could actually watch the scene where Leonidas blocks all the arrows that are coming down like raindrops and then breaks them off, and it's really cool. And you could fit them all in there as screen accurately as you want, but that's not something I'm going to do right this second, although I do need to rewatch 300 because it is a dope movie. There we go. So that's how that looks. It works pretty well, and I think it really does lend itself to a good dynamic pose, which is what we are going to try next. So I'm going to bend that knee as much as possible, bring that arm back, tilt it off to the side a little bit. We got to give Leonidas back his spear. So let's wedge that into his hand, bring it up there, see if I can get him resting or balanced at least. Maybe I'll have to use this display base in a way that supports his weight a little bit better. Maybe not. Okay, so this is a quick one. It's really not too risky in terms of what I'm doing with the body either, so that's not too bad. But when a figure itself is just this dynamic and associates with a character in a story that's this action-oriented, you don't need to do too much to get it an awesome, intimidating, shelf presence-worthy, dynamic display. So camera's coming off real quick. You'll see what I've done there. And I'll fix this up a little bit more before I get it into display, but that's something like this. It's pretty much what I'm going to go for in display. Running forward, ready to just slaughter some Persians. There we go. So alright guys, that's pretty much that for this review. We've gone over everything that there really is to go over about this figure. Like I said, I love it. It's one of the original sort of Hot Toys grail pieces. It might not quite be everyone's grail anymore, just because it's been out so long, and there has been other options to get a Leonidas into your collection since this guy came out. However, it still holds up, as a great figure today. And in my opinion, it is better than the Star Ace version, which was a newer figure, but some of the design choices in that one, I think, ended up, flying it too much in comparison to this near perfect Hot Toys figure. Just look at how crisp, one more time, sorry. Look at how crisp all the paintwork is on that head. If I can get it to focus, that is. There we go. Look at that. Look at how crisp and clean those teeth are. How lifelike those eyes are. There are companies that can't do that today, and Star Ace really didn't. Their open-mouthed head sculpt just had a lot of paint slop on the teeth. It looked like he was wearing a mouth guard. So I'm happy to have this one in my collection to keep on display, and I'm not too heartbroken about selling off the Star Ace one. But anyways, did I answer all of your questions? Do you have any more questions or comments about this particular figure? Feel free to sound off in the comments and let me know. Maybe we can get a dialogue going. I love chatting with other collectors. And that's going to do it for this review. So stay happy, stay healthy, and keep on collecting. Bye-bye.